So welcome everybody to today's Sutta class. It's a continuation on that manuscript which I call the Word of the Buddha. And for those of you who forget, the last time I did make the announcement that the disciples over in Hong Kong have asked me and gained permission to print this out, basically to have like a hard copy which we can distribute to people. So that'll be coming soon. In the meantime, this is available on the website for you to download and see and make the best use of. And again, to understand where this came from, we had to have obviously the teachings of the Buddha. And when we have these teachings, we do have them translated into many languages. But the English translations, you always find no fault with the Dhamma, but sometimes the way it is translated, and sometimes the last translation was done such a long time ago, and it's very helpful to translate them in a accurate but also meaningful way. And so often there are some words which are a bit strange, some of the metaphors are a bit obtuse. It's very hard to actually find what does it really mean. And it's not that difficult to get different metaphors, different similes, but still keep as close as you can to the original, using better words, and thereby having it more powerful. And one of the things I remember when I first read the suttas is how much repetition there was. And if you can remember that these suttas, teachings of the Buddha, in the early days were just recited. They weren't written down in books, they were recited and learnt by heart. And because of that, it does help to have repetition. It makes it easier to actually to learn and remember. But of course, now we have books that it's much easier to take out some of those repetitions, and without diminishing in any way the accuracy of what is explained, we can get a much more powerful teachings. So that's one of the reasons why these are translations which I did, and hopefully if you find any fault with them, please let me know, but I found them much more meaningful and powerful, and still being not my translation. It's not my Dhamma, this is the Dhamma of the Buddha. And as it is the teachings of the Buddha, I usually insist on doing the Namo Tassa first of all, as a mark of respect. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. So in this part of the Word of the Buddha teachings, as part of the seventh factor of the Eightfold Path, the Sammasati, having explained and talked about the four, what I call focuses of mindfulness, prefer that to the foundations of mindfulness, because the focuses of mindfulness indicate where that mindfulness should be, directed. And after that, there is a sutta which expands on the meaning of mindfulness, Anapanasati Sutta. And one of the powerful statements of the Anapanasati Sutta is that anyone who completes the training in Anapanasati, what we usually call the 16 steps of Anapanasati, will also complete the four focuses of mindfulness, the four satipatthana. And what that does, I keep on emphasizing this, because that actually shows that what many people feel is samatha practice, like anapanasati, also completes what many people feel as satipatthana, which is the 4 focuses of mindfulness. The two are not distinguishable. And in that Anapanasati Sutta, when it starts talking about how Anapanasati completes the Satipatthana, then it goes on to see how the Satipatthana completes the 7 enlightenment factors. Remember, the Eightfold Path is a path. And when you have those 8 factors of the Eightfold Path, where does that path lead? And of course that path leads to enlightenment and the understanding, the knowledge of enlightenment. That's almost like the path and the goal. And sometimes, often, that goal is represented by the 7 enlightenment factors. And so very often, as in here, they say, once you do the 4 focuses of mindfulness, that leads to the 7 enlightenment factors, which leads to release from samsara. You're an arahat, you're fully enlightened. So today we come on to the 4 focuses of mindfulness, how they complete the 7 enlightenment factors. So here we go. How do the 4 focuses of mindfulness, developed and cultivated, complete the 7 enlightenment factors? And 1. Now, of course, it's 7 enlightenment factors, but because that I had the freedom to present it, to format it in how we'd normally format it in English, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that is not there in the suttas. That is not there in most translations of the suttas. So you see the 1, 2, 3, 4, that's not in the original Pali. I put in there because it makes life much easier when you're studying these suttas. So what are these 7 enlightenment factors? 1, when you are mindful of the body, having restrained the 5 hindrances, energized, fully aware of the purpose and mindful, on that occasion steady mindfulness is established in you. Please have a look at that statement, steady mindfulness is established in you. On whatever occasion steady mindfulness is established in you, on that occasion the mindfulness enlightenment factor is aroused in you. You develop it, and by development it comes to fulfillment in you. So first of all, just being mindful is not enough. It has to, number 1, be steady mindfulness. Not just mindfulness here and then mindfulness there. It has to be on an object long enough that you can penetrate into it. And I'm going to do this simile here. And many of you have seen this before, probably every other couple of weeks. What is it I'm holding up now? What is this? What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? Yes, very good. See, this is where you have an object, you're mindful of it, but when it's steady, you can see all other aspects of it, many other uses, many other parts of it, which when you just think it's a gong bonger, you don't see so clearly. But when you stay on something, aware of it, steady mindfulness, it does the purpose of exploring it, going right into it, and seeing parts of this which you never expected to see before. That's why the mindfulness has to be steady. Number 2, it's not just steady mindfulness is established, you develop it. And by development it comes to fulfillment in you. And I think many of you, maybe on retreats, you may have experienced really full mindfulness, very strong and stable. I just happened to be talking to, I forget who it was, somebody a few days ago, and they were telling me about the experience which many of you may have when you're in, say, like a car accident, or like me falling off a cliff, or thinking you're going to die. And sometimes in those occasions, strange, but this is how I remember it, time slows down and things get distorted. In time you can see so clearly. It's like everything is going slow and you perceive so much. It's like your mindfulness gets amplified. And it's not just that the mindfulness gets amplified, you see so much, but also you can remember that very easily. This is what happens when mindfulness starts to get developed and it starts to come to fulfillment. You really are aware, fully aware, and things are just slow and full. You start to see things you've never seen before. And to me that's so much fun. We come to the fun part later on in the factors of enlightenment, but just the fact that you feel like really alive. Maybe your energy levels in your body may not be strong, you may be old, like many of us here, but nevertheless your mind is just so penetrating. You can see something and see so much more in it. And that is part of the development of mindfulness. That's one of the reasons why I say just ordinary mindfulness is not enough to see superordinary Dhammas. You have to develop the really strong mindfulness, steady and penetrating. And then it comes to fulfillment in you, to see how mindful you can really be. When you are thus mindful, you explore the Dhamma with wisdom. And of course this was a long search before you could find a decent word for what some people would say contemplating or thinking, or I much prefer the word explore. And the reason I prefer the word explore because it doesn't so much involve the rational mind of concepts and relationships between concepts and inferences and things like that. It is like with this mind which is willing to explore, investigate, to see things you've never seen before. And please remember, if you did understand the Dhamma, there'd be no point to practice this. You'd be fully enlightened. Here you're seeing things you haven't seen before, understanding things you have not penetrated yet, and sometimes being faced with clear evidence of things which you can sometimes cause fear in people, simply because, wow, is this what the Buddha's really talking about? But you have to have that courage to explore. So I prefer, instead of thinking or contemplating or investigating, the word exploring. It gives to mind those stories I remember reading as a young boy of people going into far-off lands, into, I don't know why they called it that, like darkest Africa. Why it was dark. But you had to be courageous. You never knew what you were going to find around the next bend of the path. But you were willing to explore, to find the truth. So the exploration is, I think, a word which has a much closer meaning to what we're doing here with the mindfulness. When you are mindful, you can explore the gongbonga, and you see things you haven't seen before. On that, whatever occasion, abiding thus mindful, you explore Dhamma with wisdom. On that occasion, the exploration of Dhamma, enlightenment factor, is aroused in you, and you develop it, and by development it comes to fulfillment in you. This is not just learning from books. The learning from books gives you like the map, but the actual exploration is done by you going there. Then you understand what those words and ideas in the maps actually mean. So you explore the Dhamma with wisdom. Whatever occasion, abiding thus mindful, you explore the Dhamma with wisdom. On that occasion, the exploration of Dharma enlightenment factor is aroused in you. And you develop that skill of being able to have strong mindfulness, look at something and penetrate in there and experience, see, know things you've never seen before. And it comes to fulfillment in you. Now, when you explore Dhamma with wisdom and embark upon a full inquiry into it, unflagging energy is aroused. It's very hard to find a word for that strong but peaceful energy. Unflagging is not a very good English word, but nevertheless, that's the best you can come up with. On whenever occasion, that type of energy is aroused as you explore the Dhamma with wisdom. And what actually does that mean? Sometimes when you have strong mindfulness and you start to really be able to penetrate into things, you can explore them, it becomes fascinating. It becomes so interesting that the interest, the involvement in that investigation becomes a source of energy. A lot of times we get dull and slothful because we get bored. And we get bored because our mindfulness is very dull. We can't see the beauty and sometimes the excitement, to put it bluntly, about seeing new things and exploring new things and being able to uncover things you've never ever seen before or in ways you've never experienced before. And that becomes, again, fascinating. Just to try and give some examples, I don't know why this example comes up, but here it comes. Please, I apologize for them being personal examples, but simply that those are the ones closest to me, which I know are true and I can explain at length because I experienced them. And that was, the time when just sitting in a Zen monastery in the north of England. Many of you know the story, that they were teaching a type of meditation I'd never done before, which was just looking at, with eyes open, on a whitewashed wall. What other thing should I do? They never gave me any more instructions, that was it. So you're sitting there, eyes open, just watching a whitewashed wall. My advantage was I still had done lots of ordinary breath meditation. I knew how to keep my mind reasonably still and stop thinking. And that was when, as many of you heard me say before, the wall vanished. Your eyes were wide open. And then the wall in front of me just disappeared out of existence. There was nothing left. Now, of course, if you're not courageous, that's sort of, you're fully mindful, you're exploring into this, and something happens which I never expected to happen. And it was just kind of confronting at first. But at least I was courageous enough, just to let it be and not interfere with it, not go backwards. This is weird. What's happening? It's such a simple phenomenon to explain afterwards. But when it happens, you don't expect it to happen. Of course, it can be scary to people. And all it is just teaching you about the nature of the brain and the mind. It only notices things which change. If they stay constant, they disappear. It should never have scared me at all, or never surprised me. It's just basic understanding of how the brain works. A constant sound in the background disappears after a while. I often use that when I'm meditating. the feeling I have in my buttocks right now, pressed against the cushion, of course, that will disappear after a few minutes when I'm meditating. It's constant, it's not threatening. And that was just like the vision of a whitewashed wall. It never changed, it wasn't threatening. So after a while, just my mind, my sense of sight turned off. It's much easier to understand these days, of course, because we have similes of the computer. If it stays still long enough, the screen turns off. But that was kind of an example of exploring the Dhamma. And when you full inquiry into it, it becomes fascinating. And that fascinating part of it was the source of the energy. This was really interesting. And a lot of times I remember that I used to be a school teacher before I became a monk. And as a school teacher, sometimes you're teaching the same class but to a different group of children. You had to give it some energy, some oomph, get interested in it yourself. And that interest would inspire the children as well. And they'd sort of get really into what was to them a fascinating journey into something as dull as maths. You get inspired yourself, and then you could take that inspiration, and you were fascinated by it. So that's exploring the Dhamma with wisdom, embark on a full inquiry into it, and energy is aroused. And when that energy, enlightenment factor is aroused in you, and you develop it, by development it comes to fulfillment in you. Now energy, first of all, the energy of this path of meditation and exploration, it is not a restless energy. There's so many different types of energy which you can experience in your life. And this is the energy which is, I kind of like the idea of interest. This is weird, this is important, this is so you have no lack of oomph in your exploration. You're not scared, you don't go backwards, you're really interested in what's going to happen next, what you're going to find next. I don't know, sometimes, because I don't watch the TV, but they used to have, someone told me these shows where they give you a place to go and search for something, and you have to get there as soon as you possibly can. Is that right? Okay, but that was, the people get interested in that. To me I said, what do you want to go to that place for? What do you want to go to this place for? Because it was just fascinating for them, they had huge amounts of energy into this. So that interest, that fascination, gives rise to that energy. So after a while in meditation, when you really start getting into it, the energy really comes up. And it's really hard to have things like sloth, or I'm tired, I'm bored. When it's done properly, wow, this is interesting. And sometimes you can't find enough time. That's why sometimes people stay up all night meditating. Not because they're trying to get somewhere, they're really interested. How many times, remember when you were young, it's not that many really young people here, but when you were young you stayed up all night talking with your friends or listening to music or whatever else you got up to in those days. I remember sometimes my mother would say, oh, you're mad, going out to a music concert at 2 o'clock in the morning when I was young. But I was interested. The energy was there because, you really wanted to experience this. And that's kind of unflagging energy. That was caused by the wrong motivations, but at least you can experience something, what it's like. And now this is the next thing which happens after the energy. 4. When you have aroused energy, unworldly joy arises. On whatever occasion unworldly joy arises, on that occasion the joy enlightenment factor is aroused in you, and you develop it. And by development it comes to fulfillment in you. And this was, I don't know about you, but this was really important to me when I started seeing right in the middle of the enlightenment factors was the start of experiencing bliss. Unworldly joy. This is not like the joy of, having the Sri Lankan cricket team win a match, or having Poland win the World Cup. It's not the happiness, the joy of winning the lotto or something. This is unworldly stuff. And wow, you can feel the energy coming up, and with it comes joy and bliss. It's really happy. And that's a wonderful thing to experience, simply because as a monk, I'm committed to this, 100%. And if there's no joy in this monastic life, then some people would say, what are you doing this for, Ajahn Brahm? You must be weird just trying to sort of deny yourself all these joys of life. But I've mentioned to many of you so often, I became a monk, I stay as a monk because the joys of these meditation states are way, way better than anything I've ever experienced in the world. It's unworldly joy. It's gorgeous. And I usually call it just blissing out. And sometimes if you have a partner in life who blisses out when they're meditating, leave them alone, let them enjoy it. Because it's so beneficial in so many different ways. And when you see other people getting to these beautiful, beautiful meditations with so much bliss, that simile which I've given to you before of this Malaysian girl getting into the jhana for the first time right at the end of a retreat over in Thailand. And I didn't think she was going to get anywhere. She said she was just killing time. A taxi to take her to the airport was going to be late. So she went to the meditation hall and just sat down. Again, killing time, not wanting anything. And then she came out about 45 minutes later, and I was sitting on a chair having an orange juice or something. And she came up to me on her knees, and I will never forget her face. I don't know if I can convey it to you, but it was like you may have a daughter falling in love for the first time. Oh, daddy, daddy, oh, you're wonderful, oh. Her bliss was just so palpable. Of course, she just got into a deep meditation for the first time, and she could express it only in one way, just by being silly, being much younger than her real age was. But I always remember that, and I always think what a beautiful expression that is of the joy which comes from meditation. And that's what's supposed to happen. When you have aroused energy, unworldly joy arises. So what should you do? Let go of that joy? Think, oh no, I'm not into joy. On whatever occasion unworldly joy arises, on that occasion the joy enlightenment factor is aroused. And you develop it. You don't get rid of it. And by development it comes to fulfillment in you. You become a happy little Buddhist. And the reason it's important to me, because I don't know about you, maybe you've been brainwashed by me long enough now. I always thought that you weren't allowed to be happy in spiritual life. No pain, no gain. I don't know who said that stupid word. But nevertheless, to see that joy and see it coming up in you and others is a very beautiful thing to behold, and it's part of the path. Oh yeah. 5. What happens next? Go on.
Sorry. I didn't know that number 2 and number 3. You left the word Dhamma as it is.
Oh, okay.
Without doing English.
Okay.
And some places it is translated as, I think, principles or sometimes as phenomena.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have seen phenomena or principles, but I think when you use the word explore, would you say the word phenomena more fits in with if you look for a better word?
Okay, it's a very good question. I did think of saying something about that, but I never did. I don't like any such translation. It's like there are some words which do not have an adequate translation into English. And at this point, I will pay my respects to Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, because I remember reading one of his books, and he was giving an explanation on over 3 or 4 pages, not just one word, what this idea Dhamma actually means. And it really got me and gave me a very thorough understanding what this word is supposed to be representing. He said Dhamma is looking at this, you might call it phenomena, experience right now, whatever you experience right now, where did this come from? What caused it? Its origin? The things which had to be there for this to happen. It's looking at this moment and finding out where this came from. And that has an antonym, in other words an opposite, called atta, A-T-T-H-A. What's the consequence of this moment? Where's this going to lead to? Where this is going to go? So Dhamma is looking at like causality. Where did this come from? Where did you come from, Ananda? What caused you, to be the man you are now? What caused like a sickness to come up? You don't just look at a sickness like a cancer. Why did that cancer come? That's looking at the Dhamma, tracing it backwards to the causes, the origins, where it came from. And any of you who study Buddhism and get sort of an overview of it, a lot of times the Buddha's not saying what actually is, but how it came to be like this. What most people call the dependent origination of phenomena. Phenomena is this, but why? Where did it come from? How did it arise? Where did you come from? Don't say you were born in Sri Lanka. That's your body, that's not you. So many different lives, different places. Why? And sometimes that understanding how things arise, where they come from, that is more important than understanding what they actually are right now. So why are they like this? So thank you for that, because I did mention that, I think, to a talk to the monks recently. And to me that was a very important part of understanding the Buddha's teachings. What does that word actually mean? You okay? Okay. But thank you for that question, that's good. Now what happens? How do you know it's the right type of joy? Sometimes when you have joy, you feel like dancing up and down. You feel like going, wow, yay! But that's not the unworldly type of joy. When you have aroused, when you have experienced unworldly joy, what happens next? Your body and mind become tranquil. And again, wow, this actually says there's a different type of joy. You don't feel you need to do anything. Everything just gets so still. The body becomes tranquil. In other words, you don't need to move. This is where one of the causes for being able to sit meditation for long periods of time. You have this beautiful inspirational joy, and everything just is comfortable. It's like your body is satisfied. It doesn't want to go anywhere or do anything. There's no aches or pains. It's just, wow, this is amazing. That joy gives rise to bodily tranquility, but also the mental tranquility as well. You don't need to go and think about what you should do and strive and decide what to do and figure out how to do it, where you need to go. You don't go giving yourself amazing Dhamma talks just to yourself. Have you ever been in that state of meditation where the mind becomes so empowered you can give an incredible talk to yourself? Have you experienced that? You haven't. Eddie probably has. But no, I'll just finish off and then I can do the question. This is actually where, and the Buddha mentioned this in one of his talks about the hindrances, not the hindrances of the 5 hindrances, the obstacles to meditation, what people think about. And he said the last obstacle, he said the lingering obstacle, when everything else has been calmed down, is thinking about Dhamma. There's an obstacle. And when I first came across that, I said, this must be a misprint. Because sometimes there are misprints, or people do the translation, understand it incorrectly. But then I checked it out, this is not a misprint. It was my misunderstanding. That's what the Buddha said, and it's absolutely accurate. And I love telling that to other very senior monks. So thinking about Dhamma is an obstacle to enlightenment. So how come on, Ajahn Brahm, you can't say that. Well, not me said it, the Buddha said it. And then after a while you understand what that actually is. You're getting still, and then the mind has like kind of a power to actually to think clearly, to get some wonderful ideas and inferences, and you think that this is amazing stuff. But you're not still enough yet. I always kind of called it like Mara's last trick. You think you've understood the Dhamma, you can see everything, and you have great inferences, but you haven't got still enough yet for the hindrances to totally go. You're thinking about Dhamma rather than seeing it. And that's an amazing sort of little insight of the Buddha. But when you really become tranquil with lots of unworldly joy, the mind becomes tranquil too. You're not thinking about Dhamma, you're seeing it. And the two are very different. And anyway, Eddie, what was your question now? No, it's okay. I just needed to finish off that part.
I want to say something. Thank you, Ajahn Brahm. Thank you. I really glad that I come to this your explanation. Okay, all the while I know the 7 factors of enlightenment, all the different steps, all these things. But it's now, when you say this thing, I recall my earlier life.
Yeah.
Can I say something? I went through this thing, without knowing it.
Yeah.
You were saying starting with mindfulness and then the investigation of Dhamma. I went through that, and then the energy arose. I remember I just shared with the people.
Yes.
When I first came into this thing, I read, this is me.
Yeah.
Normally, what I do is my younger time, in the evening I'll go out. Meet with friends, drinking or whatever. So knowing this thing, I come back from work, have my shower. This thing, maybe just go for half an hour to the shop and come back. I just want to read the Dhamma. And I read the Dhamma from 8 to even 1 o'clock in the morning. And the next day I work, I feel fresh. It's the energy is down there, and that is I just share with you the energy, this thing, and then there's the energy, and then there's the tranquility, I feel tranquil, I read Dhamma, and it makes me feel so tranquil. And then you said the joy arise, yes. The joy did arise in me, And then all this I've been through. It's only now that I realize I went through.
Good.
Just now, right now.
Excellent.
I'm just sharing with people that you might not realize it, and this happened, good Lord, many years ago, 20, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And only now I read the 7 factors and all these things. Now that, I've been through this, that strong energy arose in me, That I keep reading, this is me, and this is me. And I keep reading till 1 o'clock, you know, and like I have the small, I call my Bible, a book which I wrote down too, you know. I wrote down,
yes, yeah.
and there's books I have. Luckily, I underline them. It's with me.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
I underline all these things, and you just don't feel like doing other thing already. These things.
Yeah.
And the joy, tranquility, all arise. Now, that I'm not this thing. You don't boast, Ajahn Brahm.
No, indeed, yes.
You don't. I'm just sharing to you, and only now I realize this. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's my joy.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. Cheng, over here first. Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Hi, Ajahn
Hi.
Brahm. Hi. I was just wondering about your explanation of the Dhamma,
Yes.
and if it's about causation, like how we arrive at this point and see it clearly, like the origin.
Yes.
But how is that idea reconciled with the concept of sort of presence in the now?
Okay, you have a presence in the now, so you're very clear on the phenomena or the experience which you have in this moment. But then to really understand it, you have to understand what caused it, where it came from. So you do that also, going backwards. You know, it has to be backwards in time. Even like dependent origination. So often that people, they tried to force dependent origination into just basically one moment or one life. And that is just so stupid. It cannot be done. If you look at the definitions which the Buddha gave, how he wanted to be explained, it has to be going back to previous lives. Otherwise it just doesn't work. I won't go into depth there, but the way the words are used, the explanations given, there's no other possibility there. And so you realize the Buddha wanted you to find out why. Where did you come from? I remember Ajahn Brahm, I started to put a bit of lightness into this. It's heavy and beautiful, but whenever someone asked him where he came from, what country he came from, so where were you born? Where did you come from? He'd always answer, I come from my mummy's tummy. He didn't say he came from Thailand. He said he came from his mother's tummy. A different way of looking at it. Not the place, but the place where the body originated from.
So explorations of like origin is important.
Yes, indeed. Because otherwise we get totally just confused. Once we know the causes, sometimes some of the causes which stop our development of the path are seen. And once they are seen, you can let them go when you know how dangerous they are. One of those, which I've made so much noise about, if you like, said so often, is the idea of striving. You know, striving, people think if you're going to be a meditator, especially a monk, you have to work so hard and strive to get stillness in your mind, to get deep meditations. And that's just totally the opposite. And when you see that for yourself, you see those causes. Where does a very still, beautiful, powerful, blissful mind come from? And it comes not from striving, but from letting go, renouncing, not doing anything. Your sense of self, which does all that stuff, starting to vanish. When you see that for yourself, you understand how you can get into deep meditation and the obstacles. And you teach them that as much as you can to others. And sometimes some of them get it. And they have some beautiful meditations. And I said, I never did anything. Yes, well done.
Thank you.
Oh, Cheng, yeah.
I just want to add this comment, add this experience
Yes.
of peace and tranquility back into this, trying to understand the framework of this anapanasati all the way to Dhamma investigation
Yes.
to Ananda. If, let's say, we go along with Eddie understanding, I mean, we didn't experience, but we go along with his experience, the mind state at that time would be followed through, will be going to unworthy pity. He would have gone into, based on earlier on we read about the four focus on mindfulness.
Correct.
His body, his reading, his Dhamma, everything.
Yeah.
He would have now gone into flow into piti sukha of first jhana, second jhana. I'm just trying to understand this, complete this four focus of mindfulness, and then four focus mindfulness complete the 7 factor of enlightenment. I just want to understand whether his experience can apply in this way.
Yes.
You see, most people say that, oh, I investigate Dhamma, but if you really, there's a difference between how do you know you're investigating Dhamma, and how do you know that you're, like you earlier said, it's a hindrance if you investigate when you don't have a mindfulness that is a steady mindfulness. How do you know these two differences?
The difference is, you know, is when you're exploring Dhamma, it's beyond the words, no concepts.
Yeah, but then what Eddie is saying, I could then rule out that his is not in this framework of 7
No, it's
enlightenment
close
factor.
enough. Yeah. A lot of times it just, you know, there's sometimes it's hard to explain exactly what we mean.
Sorry, Ajahn Brahm, sorry, it was here. You see, for me, look, this is from my heart, you know.
Exactly.
It's coming from my heart, the thing, you know. Looking back all these things, okay, the invention of the Dhamma and all this, the joy, tranquility, they come very simultaneously, you know.
Yeah.
Without you knowing, you know, not, then you feel tranquil, you know, tranquil. And then like maybe I'm not trying to say for myself, please, you know.
Yes.
Not. And then you said the bliss, you know. When I have the meditation here, I don't feel bliss, Ajahn Brahm.
Yes.
I feel it's peaceful. Before Dhamma, it was hell. Life for me was hell.
Yeah.
You know, all the late, it was hell. I tell you the thing, you know. And then this peace is like a bliss, you know. But of course, this bliss is not like deep as you experience the thing, you know.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot more to go through this thing. You know, I see through all, and then they go in sequence like that time you won't realize. You don't realize it. Ajahn Brahm said it.
Exactly.
You don't realize it. Only when you look back, oh yes, I've been through that. The thing.
Something triggered that.
Yeah,
this is how you experience things. We haven't finished with these 7 enlightenment factors yet, because there's some more to come which will probably answer some of the questions which people have. Yeah.
Remember, Ajahn Brahm, the highest is remember last week I talked about equanimity?
Yes, yeah.
You know, I said I use equanimity to solve problem.
Yeah.
When there's a problem, this thing, and I use equanimity, this thing, highest is equanimity. Maybe, I don't know. That's you know it, Ajahn Brahm?
Yeah, it's coming up soon.
Yeah, equanimity to solve the problem. When there's a problem, you know, you don't, you know, there's problem, you know, this feeling. You apply the mind when you have all this equanimity, you know, it's just equanimity, you know, there's nothing to worry about all these things.
Good,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can realize that, then you can solve a lot of...
Okay,
Well,
I'm
just
going to
sharing
talk
this
about
also.
this soon. So when you have experienced unworldly joy, your body becomes tranquil, your mind becomes tranquil, both become tranquil. On whatever occasion the body and the mind become tranquil and you experience joy, on that occasion the tranquility, enlightenment factor is aroused in you, and you develop it, and by development it comes to fulfillment in you. That's number 5. There's 2 to go, 6 and 7. When your body is tranquil and you feel pleasure in the mind becomes still. You know the word for still we're using here? It's called samadhi. So often, again, people think samadhi is concentration. Concentration is what you do, and it tires you out after a while. Instead of calling it concentration, stillness. That's far more accurate. And also it opens up huge amounts of understanding about what meditation is and how it works. The mind becomes still and joyful. We're not talking about stillness in some sort of trance where you're not really aware of what's going on. It's not like you're half asleep inside. You've never been more aware. You really are alive. On whatever occasion the mind becomes still and joyful, on that occasion the stillness enlightenment factor is aroused in you, and you develop it, and by development it comes to fulfillment in you. I know that sometimes when people translate, I would say mistranslate, the word samadhi as concentration, they develop this idea of momentary concentration, khanika samadhi, which word does not exist in the Tipitaka. The Buddha never said that word, khanika samadhi. And when you understand that samadhi means stillness, and you think of momentary stillness, every one of you is momentary still. To move, you need a bit of time. So that's such a dodgy word. I'm saying is how I feel on that. But stillness, the more still you are, the longer it lasts. That's why, if any of you do experience the jhana, there's the states of deep samadhi, you will find it lasts a long time. The deeper the jhana, the more hours. It's not as if you decide to beat your personal best. You can't do otherwise. You sit there and you'd no idea of what time is. You're just blissed out for long periods of time. And hours go past, and when you come out afterwards, you haven't got a clue how long. Look at the clock, oh, the clock must have stopped or something. This is what happens. The deeper the samadhi, the more hours. So when you really get into this, you have to be careful to let your friends know, otherwise you miss so many appointments. I'm going to say that little anecdote again about that Vietnamese monk over in Sydney somewhere who started a meditation retreat. Many of you have been on 9-day meditation retreats. They started in Friday evening, just half an hour meditation, but after half an hour he hadn't come out of his meditation, he was still sitting there. He never gave a talk. And if that was you, just like all these Vietnamese, they just come on the retreat, they were tired. After an hour and a half sitting there, they decided to go to bed. They left the monk there. And the monk never moved for 8 days. He never came out of his meditation, never went to the toilet, never took anything to drink, never ate. He just sat there without moving at all. And then after the 8 days, it was a 9-day retreat, he came out, and the first thing he said, I apologize. I just got into a deep meditation, I didn't do my duties to teach you. I'm sorry. And of course everybody said, no, that was one of the most inspiring things they'd ever seen. And just that inspiration to realize these things actually happen, they're possible. Said that was worth so many talks. So this is what happens when you're really still. That stillness means almost like time stops. And the antidote to that, the reason why, yeah, people seeing that's good, but you don't allow that to happen, because if ever any one of you, you can feel you're going to get into a really nice deep state of meditation. What you do is you tell yourself, make a determination, I must come out by 8:30 or something to give the talk. A simple thing like that, a simple resolution. I must come out at this time, I must come out at this time, I must come out at this time. Not with force, but just to remind the mind, to condition it. And then that's when you come out. Otherwise you can stay in there for a long time. Anyway, by development, that stillness becomes fulfilled in you. And the next part, what Eddie was talking about as well, you observe such a still mind with equanimity. On whatever occasion you observe with equanimity the still mind, and you develop it, and by developing it, it comes to fulfillment in you. The word upekkha, equanimity, is not a bad word, a bad translation, but literally it means looking upon. Pekha and u means basically upon it. Like I'm just looking upon this computer. It's not my computer. I don't care if it blows up. But you look upon it with a sense of just looking, not owning. That kind of equanimity also means you're looking upon that stillness, never thinking you own it. It's not yours. It's just what you might call like a phenomenon. You know its causes, why it came up, but you never think it's yours. You never would regard any deep meditation experience or any deep insights as personal possessions. That is why, just to say it clearly, that you don't put medals on monks and nuns. The Buddhist Society of Western Australia will not give you a medal for being confirmed that you have experienced first jhana or second jhana or third. You don't put a medal on you or a couple of stripes on your sleeve to say that you're a stream winner or a once return or whatever. All of those things are not personal possessions. It's when things are vanishing. That's why it would never ever feel appropriate to give you a certificate if you were fully enlightened. So you can put that on your wall, so to confirm you are a meditation teacher, you've been confirmed as enlightened by the BSWA. Such a thing is ridiculous. But anyway, so you observe that still mind with equanimity, just looking on. The other part of equanimity which I like is, especially when you use that to describe what it feels like, is like the word contentment. There's another word for contentment which has got stuck to the word santuti, but nevertheless, upekkha, it is not just a cold term. It's beautifully delightful. And people say, well, I thought upekkha was where piti and sukha have ended, such as in the fourth jhana. But still, the Buddha sometimes calls that experience of upekkha sukha, another type of happiness. The happiness of just, again, contentment. What a Zen monk would probably call the happiness of no happiness, the joy of no joy. Whatever it is you call it, but it's still delightful. Anyway, that is how the four focuses of mindfulness, developed and cultivated, complete the 7 enlightenment factors. And those 7 enlightenment factors, they make you enlightened. Not you enlightened, but that's it. Okay, another question from someone? There we go. Hi.
You were talking about striving to meditate. Now surely that would be different for each individual. I know when I started to meditate, I needed to deal with my own issues first. you know, which may have been routine behaviour, a lack of love, some jealousy, whatever have you, and going to the very cause of this before I would get that peace of mind and before I would get that stillness. Now that also took some doing, because from my point of view, it's no good pushing those emotions and those feelings down and not dealing with them, because how are you going to be enlightened unless you deal with those first?
Okay, the answer to that is that you don't suppress them, you don't deal with them, you let them go. Letting something go is not suppression. Suppression is where you hide it under the mat or under the carpet. Letting go is you realize you don't own that, and you can let it disappear. And I've had some, years ago I used to have these wonderful discussions with psychologists, and they said, no, you can't just let something go, you have to deal with it. And I kept my point that no, you don't. It's amazing just how many things you can let go of. They hurt you, it's a problem for you. But when you are sitting meditation, you get to that cushion, you sit on it. It's amazing how much of that you can just let disappear. It doesn't come into your mind. It's like it's not you.
Yeah, but from a certain point of view, I think by dealing with these emotions and by dealing with these feelings, you understand others better as well, and you can see where they are coming from, and they may have the same issues as you did. So unless you kind of get to the cause of it, which I found was just a perceived lack of love somewhere, and then it all makes sense.
Yes, but sometimes when there are issues in one's life, sometimes it's almost impossible to deal with every one of them. So sometimes you may take up one or two of those issues if you wish, and you find you can let them go. And you have a much more powerful way of dealing with incredibly powerful emotional blockages. I'll just mention this today to someone who came to lunch, because last week I went to their house to do a quick blessing, and just opposite their house there's this other gentleman I know. He's the father-in-law of Sumeta Galhainagi. He is a proctologist, the one who sticks the cameras up your backside to find out what's wrong with you. But his wife, she was a psychologist, and she was working in that group called Assets. I often mention them. Australian Society for the Survivors of Torture and Trauma. And these are people, men and women, who have been tortured overseas, and they get sort of refugee migrant status because basically they've gone through such unspeakable pain. Multiple rapes, beatings, the worst possible torture. And the fact that that still happens nowadays is just really so sad. And they come to a place like Australia, and physically they're free, emotionally they're still in those torture chambers in some Middle East government underground, or wherever it is. And the thing which works the best for them. And when I heard this, I just, wow, it inspired me to the max. Was the opening the door of your heart. Many of you have heard me talk about this before. I'll just go over it briefly. Where when you feel safe, when you feel you're ready, you can't force this. You sit there, close your eyes, and imagine two big doors in your heart region. Just imagination. Open those doors, and you see outside of you, there's little girls, little boys who are so badly treated. You You can't understand why other people did that to you. I mean, really painful, really humiliating. And each one of those little people have been outside your heart for such a long time. And you imagine like a staircase going down. I'm doing this very quickly. You invite each one of those people in to your heart. What you said was correct. You give them love, acceptance, embracing no matter what happened to you. The door of my heart's open to you. Come in. And with that coming in, is not trying to solve those problems, but embracing them. And one by one they come in, a reconciliation. I'll never keep you out of my heart ever again. And it's kind of traumatic, but amazingly healing. And this, what comes to my mind, giving a talk about that one evening, and there was one of those people from some eastern country, and she was just over here and telling about what she went through. And there was one of the boys here was listening, and just, wow, that's terrible what happened to you. And she responded with, you've got no right to say that. That's who I am. And she was incredibly at peace with what happened to her. It wasn't a problem for her anymore. And to see that, and that was extreme sort of abuse. Wow. She was like a hero. I don't know, you have like people apparently in these movies, Superwoman or something. No, this is like a real Superwoman. You couldn't fly through the air or anything, but just her wisdom and kindness was incredible. That's how to deal with the past. Don't deal with it to try to get rid of it. Deal with it to let it in. But to add to that, because I teach monks how to meditate, I always mention to them the striving stops when you get on the cushion. You have to strive to get the time, a comfortable place, a healthy body to sit down there and shut your eyes. Once you've on the cushion, please stop striving. Doesn't matter what's happening to you. That's the fastest and most effective way. And once you have that stillness in the mind, then you can really help others. Jing, okay. Yeah.
I mean, that you just cover from point 1 to point 7, and we are covering these 7 factors of enlightenment under the heading of Niwana through
Anapanasati,
Anapanasati. Yes. Am I getting it right that at this point 7, we are actually trying to experience first jhana to fourth jhana, or not really at all?
This is number 6.
No, at the, let's say you already covered this 7, the point 1 to point 7, and it's called 7th enlightenment factor.
Correct, yes.
Does it mean that, and then this section is under Nimana through Anapanasati? I'm trying to understand, so are we learning that if you can follow what the instruction all the way from breathing in, breathing out, step 116, go to complete the 4 focus of mindfulness, and now complete this one, the person, the meditator, will have a steady mindfulness, and the meditator by now will have first to fourth jhana. Am I trying to understand?
Yeah, that's not bad understanding, but the 7 factors of enlightenment is independent of, 4 focuses of mindfulness, independent of Anapanasati. It stands by itself. This is just a standard description of what the qualities that you do have to develop to experience enlightenment. This is not just said over in this Anapanasati Sutta.
So just go back to Eddie's experience.
Yeah.
Eddie, I'm just not that I'm questioning your experience. I know his experience is real and
Yeah.
it's true, and he's trying to share
Yeah.
with us. So go back to his experience of his tranquility, his pity and his tranquility. Does it mean that, like you're now telling me that this 7 factor of enlightenment is independent teaching itself,
Yes.
or
Yes,
framework?
correct.
Does that mean if a person with so much reading the right Dhamma and getting so much inspiration, he will have been able to break through to, with the support of the circumcision,
Yeah, it's
fading away, cessation, and language? That's what will happen if a person like Eddie's experience, kind of genuine experience, will go all the way that way.
that sort of experience can go further and go.
Well, where is the jhana in this experience then?
In number 6, when your body is tranquil, you feel pleasure in the mind becomes still, enters samadhi. That 6th factor is referring to the jhana.
So that, I just saw it, because it's just go back to another the question about this Dhamma and phenomenon,
Yeah,
exploration of Dhamma or exploration. I remember you were saying that sometimes there's a difference between doing this thing right and getting all your mental energy drained up by doing too much
yes,
investigation.
indeed.
How do we differentiate all this then? If this is if we are using just 7 factor of enlightenment, and we're not talking about using calming the breath and all this, we're just using this
Indeed.
sutta.
That sometimes the breath is very helpful, but it's not necessary. There's other ways of developing deep meditation and jhanas. But the point is here that this is actually saying these enlightenment factors, which come up again and again and again. It's like, this is how Ajahn Brahm just mentioned it to me once, and it's very accurate. It's like the enemies to enlightenment are the 5 hindrances. And then when the 5 hindrances disappear, these 7 enlightenment factors arise. The mindfulness becomes strong, and when the mindfulness becomes strong, you also get the investigation or exploration, of the Dhamma, understanding what Dhamma is. Why was I got mindfulness? What is mindfulness? And how has it come about? And you're exploring things. Why does this energy come from? Where does joy come from? And it's unworldly joy. They call it niramisa. And when the unworldly joy comes up, and that is the causes for your body to be tranquil. It's one of those sayings which when I read it, it made an impression on me, so I always remembered it. And it is, Sukhino Chittang Samadhiyati. Please excuse me for using Pali. I learned Pali, and it's easy for me to remember. From happiness, the mind becomes still, not from dukkha. So over here, we are developing unworldly joy, tranquility, pleasure with the mind, and that gives rise to the stillness of jhana. These are totally pleasant states, and sometimes you can't stop it. It's just a cause and effect thing happens. You're meditating or something's inspired you. I always liked saying about inspiration. So many times you'd hear a brilliant Dhamma talk, and I just learned how to sit down somewhere quiet, close my eyes, and you just couldn't stop getting to deep meditation. Just the whole process just happens, you can't resist it. That's where the deep meditations come from a very joyful, inspired mind. Yeah, okay, yeah. And there may be some questions on the internet, so it's a nice point to stop the text and have it for questions and answers now. So, question, who's first? You've got the microphone here.
Ajahn, exploring the Dhammas, exploring the Dharmas, exploring to me has a sense of movement to it.
Sense of?
Movement.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so how do you explore with stillness?
Exploring, you haven't got to stillness yet.
Right, but exploring has a sense of movement to it?
It is going inwards, yes.
Right.
Remember that simile which I keep evoking of the 1,000-petaled lotus. To go deeper inside, you don't move at all. You just develop that kindness and mindfulness. And those two, the warmth and light of the sun, open up the lotus. It becomes a natural opening. In order to explore the stick, you don't do anything, you just watch it. And you see deeper into it. So a lot of times, it feels like you're going into something, but that's the only movement which can be really perceived. That explain it to you? Okay. Yes.
Ajahn, I thought I might just mention that just recently I've started dedicating a day a week as my meditation day. And I know I'm lucky to have the time, but for many, many years I've had the time and didn't do this.
Yes.
And now I am doing it. I can't tell you how different well, you know, but maybe others don't know, how different it is to an ordinary day when you're fitting your meditation into all those other things.
Yes.
And then when you've got this whole day spreading out in front of you, where there's no reason to do anything else. So you don't do anything else. And my whole meditation changed completely. And I wasn't tired. And I wasn't falling asleep. And it really works. And then I listen to one of your talks, and then I go for a walking meditation, then I sit again, and it can go on all day.
Yeah.
And it's just so different. And I know others haven't got time to do that, but you might have time to come along to the Thursdays here at the centre where they're doing a whole day meditation, aren't they? They're doing Thursdays. Is that right? I've seen it on the website. Once a month.
Yeah, okay. It's good, yeah.
Yes.
That's
I recommend that if you haven't done it and you don't know how you'd go doing a whole day on your own. It'd be nice to have the support if you came here and did it.
It'd be great. I know that sometimes when people have a family and they have work, there's so much stuff to do. It's one thing to even aspire towards, when you do retire. You have time, a nice quiet place. Beautiful thing to do. Doing stuff 6 days a week, that's enough. It's nice that you're getting some time and the benefits of meditation. Well done. Okay, I'll do a couple of questions on the tablet. From Sydney, how to have faith, believe in the insights and direct experiences from exploring Dhamma. The inner experience that could be described as transcendental. Thank you, Ajahn. How to have confidence in them. Sometimes, you check to see if that's how the Buddha taught, but even more important than that, what do those insights or experiences, what do they actually do to you? If they make you more tense, if they make you more concerned, worried, afraid, then they cannot be going in the right way. It's one of the things which the Buddha said, first to his barber, Upali, and then to his foster mother, Mahapajapati, saying that whatever leads to things like peace, tranquility, just some joy, just some things disappearing and vanishing to Nibbana, you can know that those things are the teachings of the Buddha, those are the Dhamma, by what they do, what their consequences. if they make you more afraid, more arrogant, more possessive, then that can't be the right insights. The next question from Sri Lanka. How to stay in Noble Eightfold Path consistently without falling? First of all, allow yourself to fall and make mistakes sometimes. It's not you, because otherwise I'm not being realistic. Sometimes you will make mistakes sometimes. But then after a while, you learn that following the Eightfold Path leads to far more peace and tranquility and joy. And sometimes you wonder, what do I want to do anything else for? So it becomes a natural development of this path. You don't do it through force. It becomes just a natural, obvious abiding for you. And as you go deeper and deeper, when you understand these things, wouldn't you like to have unworldly joy and energy and just understand things? When it starts to happen, it becomes very, again, satisfying for your spiritual path. And you're not a miserable little person, you're a very joyful person. To me, that's always going to be the sign that someone is practicing, and that they're practicing in the correct way, by the smile on their face, not by the wisdom which they can tell you. Next question. Dhamma helped me during the toughest moments of life, but how to overcome the areas where I still find it difficult to let go? Today is my birthday. Time flies and I feel I won't manage to become a mother. After a while, when you explore such dhammas, why does that worry you? You might not manage to become a mother. If that's really important, you can always do that in your next life if you really want to. But after a while, it's not so important. Where did that desire to be a mother come from? You trace it back, the Dhamma of that. A lot of time it's like cultural force. Parents saying, are you pregnant yet? You're getting on in life, you don't want to be on the shelf. I say, no, it's lovely to be on the shelf. Shelves are very wonderful places to live on. You don't need to, always feel you have to have a kid. There's not people in the world already. Today's your birthday, so happy birthday to you. Time flies, yes. And don't fear anything. On your birthday, I give you the gift of a day without fear. Enjoy this moment. The last question here, would santuti translate to be satisfied? Sometimes to translate a word, you just almost like analyze it. Santuti, what does that actually really mean? Like by cutting up the word. But then trying to analyze the word by cutting it up into its parts is not very accurate and can be quite misleading. I do cryptic crosswords. It's a little thing I like to keep my brain going strong. And there's one crossword, together. What does together mean? You analyze it, it means to get her. So you can see it's a totally wrong translation. But then what you do with santuti, you look at how the Buddha used that word. And so you can see that someone experienced santuti. And from those experiences, you build up an understanding of what that experience is. When you know that experience, then you can find words to describe it. Like even samadhi, stillness. You can't look at the word samadhi and actually to get that from the word itself, to try and analyze it into its parts. But when you start meditating and realize what works, what doesn't work, and what it feels like. What it feels like to to have metta given to you. What does that feel like? And I always trust those translations which, are coming from the context and from experience more than anything else. What is piti and sukha? The joy of meditation. Once you start to experience and feel that, then you understand what it means. And you understand just how delicious it is. Santuti, satisfied? Yeah. But it means more than that. That's why, these days, as Buddhism and meditation becomes more common, more well known, there are some words you just don't want to find translations for. Even a word like ajhana. It's amazing just how many weird translations there are for that word. And they're not wrong, but they just miss out too much. So such an important idea and concept that I don't want to give it a name. Jhana is just good enough. Dhamma is good enough. You don't need to kind of try and find a translation which doesn't fit. English language, like Chinese, or like Thai, like Polish, is always going to be restricted. And most of it is built up by the history of those communities living in that land, speaking that tongue. And sometimes you don't have the experience to explain what a jhana is. So just use the word jhana. Just use the word Dhamma. We actually create new words, which I think is wonderful. Many years ago, because I wrote books and they were quite popular, I managed to get a new word, and it was like Hopi, H-O-P-E-Y. Don't worry, be Hopi. I don't think it really sort of stuck in the word of, the new language words, but it was getting close. I think now maybe kindfulness might eventually become a word in its own right. So language does change, and we do add new words to language. There are some words which the originals are just too good to want to change them or want to try and translate them. Anyway, I hope that makes sense to you all. So now, because this was a sutta class, if we can do the Arahang Samma Sambuddho, because that's out of respect to this is word of the Buddha. I'll move this around to finish off. It's almost 4:30.